All right, so welcome to Lunch and Life. This today is March the 24th, right? We are 3 months um into the year already, almost approaching the fourth, right? And so time is going fast. What does that tell us? That time does not wait on anyone. So welcome to Lunch and Life with Lakeisha. This is a place hopefully where you will experience a midday fuel. You may come on and hear some music that's going to fuel your soul. You may come on and get a word of encouragement. You may get a little bit of scripture. It is a faith-fueled environment. And you are welcome to invite your friends and family to join this room because we do know that it is 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So many people are at work, and even if you work for yourselves, you're in the middle of meetings. But maybe you'll catch us on the replay. My name is Lakeisha Stevenson. I am a wife, a mother, a serial entrepreneur. One of the things that I do is I am a coach, but I love to exhort the potential of others. My goal here is to build and nurture healthy relationships, help us to be empowered to move forward in our faith because we can know all of the things, be gifted in all of the areas, but it is still about execution and moving past the moments that help happen in our life. And I'll tell you something that's been sitting on me quite a bit. And I had a business meeting this weekend, which was phenomenal. And I'm just praying that the seeds that I sowed will begin to manifest and multiply in my life and in my business quickly. Can somebody just agree with me and say quickly, right? But I gave words after my meeting and in my time of meditation that morning and prayer. Um, Teresa, I really thought about moving from surviving to thriving, right? Think about it. We go through so many different things, and our body feels when we go through these changes, our mind, sometimes our families, our finances. There are sometimes that we go through things and everything seems to be affected. One of the things that's really necessary, though, is that we remain intentional about keeping our faith level up, about realizing that we really have to trust God through every process that we go through. So today, I want to talk to you really quickly. And then, of course, we're open up for any feedback, any comments. If you have a desire of another topic that you want to hear about. Now, I'm going to be inviting some friends over time. We're going to be talking about some life things. One of the things that I have in mind, my husband is an amazing realtor. He does commercial and residential. And one of the things that I realize most of the time, people don't realize that you can use a realtor outside of your state, especially when you are doing commercial. You can do it residential as well, but he can represent buyers in 86 countries. So I want him to come on and talk about some of those things. We have people going through financial challenges. They are doing home equity lines of credits, but they don't fully understand. Have an amazing partnership with a person that I'd love to bring on and talk about that. But this community is also for you. What would you need to talk about? Would you want to talk about mental health? We got somebody that can come on, right? Right in these few minutes that's going to help you be fueled, and then you can come back and listen to it. All right. So today I want to talk about moving from surviving to thriving. And I do want to circle back to that. But particularly today, talking about I want to be who you destined me to be. I was in my private meditation time, and that was something I said to God, I want to be who you destined me to be, not necessarily who I learned to become. I want y'all to let that sink in for a minute. Like literally, before you knew how to walk and talk and take the opinions and the polls of someone else, there was a person that God literally said, I'm going to let your mother and father get together and I'm going to form this person for this reason, for this purpose, for these assignments. You were literally crafted with intention. What happens along the way? We learn from people, our environments, our family, our friends, and even our foes. Sometimes the very things that we have been going through are so challenging and we don't want them to last in our life, but they last because we survived a moment, and instead of moving beyond that moment, we let that moment sit too long. Think about it. Think about it. If you've ever burned your hand on a stove for a minute, you may have been leery about cooking. Is that wrong? No. But is it possible that you might need to use the stove again in your life? Yes. It's about how long it takes us to get through a thing, to settle a thing, to reconcile from something. Many of us have gone through challenges, and I've gone through some challenges that I literally looked at them and said, you know what, God, like, for real, God, did you think I needed that too? Did you really think I needed to experience that? I don't understand the point. I mean, listen, this is real life, right? I don't understand the point. I don't even understand why you allowed me to go through that. But one thing I've learned is if you stick around long enough and you hold on to God, as the old people say, hold on to God's unchanging hands, and you would get out of your own head and realize that you couldn't even formulate a thought without God. You couldn't even formulate concepts without Him to allow your ability to do so. So you really don't know it all. You have to trust Him. But I'm telling you, I've talked to Him about some stuff. Like, did you really think I needed to go through that? Because I think I could have done without that. Like, I mean, anybody else other than me felt like I could have done without that scenario. I could have done without that delay. I could have done without that hurt, that pain, that betrayal. Like, I could have done without that. I could have done without that business challenge. I could have done without that loss. I could have done without that. But God knows everything. So there is a you that He intended for you to make a mark in this earth, right? But then comes people, places, and things. And they tell you what you could do, what you should do, why you should do it this way. And then you start grabbing all of these things along the way that could encourage you, but it could also halt you. It could also halt you, right? And so my prayer became, Lord, I really just want to be who you destined me to be, not who someone showed me, right? You have mentors, you have people that affect your life positively and negatively. So I'm really leaning into the negatives because you have people that's going to come along the way to show you. And someone said in the chat, yes, but it is part of the process to cultivate who He designed us to be, right? And the truth is, even the things that you didn't like in life can still help to shape you. But it is possible to get stuck if you just focused on it. That's when we kind of go to survival. Like, I'm just surviving a moment instead of learning what I should learn from it and using it as something to fuel me and thrust me forward. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, we can get to where we're stuck and just surviving and recircling and reliving and rehashing. So along with that, I've also asked God, could you help me with my memory? Like, some of this stuff, can you help me with my memory, to heal the areas that maybe sometimes want to come and circulate in your mind, but it's with the intention of not to get you to move forward from a moment. So we're all exposed to something, and it helps to create culture. What we're exposed to also helps to create our expectations and our patterns, our belief systems, and sometimes cycles, whether that's positive or negative. But we have a responsibility to evaluate what we've learned, what we've experienced, and recognize if there is an ungodly pattern in our life. That ungodly pattern is a thing that's going to fight against your purpose and your progress. That's what I want us to evaluate. Is there something in your life that's an ungodly pattern? Is it something that, yes, you experienced it, but it's held you hostage longer than you really should have been in the moment? We're not discounting your facts, your emotions, because God can handle your raw emotions. But is it something that seemingly wants to hold you back from forward progression? Did you mess up and now you're afraid to try again? Did you get a delay and now you're scared to take a leap? That's what I'm talking about. That's the stuff we have to kick out the box. And even if it requires you being honest with one of us and say, you know what, you're talking to me because I faced this challenge and now I feel myself second guessing myself. One of the oldest tools in the book when you go through something is that the enemy to your purpose and your destiny will cause you to try to second guess yourself, wonder if it will work. Will it fail? Now just think about it. God told me to do this at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know who's coming, but guess what? That's not the reason that I do it. I do it out of sheer obedience. If one comes, if one is encouraged, so be it. I am doing what I was asked to do. I'm doing, excuse me, what I was told to do. He voluntold me that 12 o'clock is the time on Tuesday, right? It doesn't matter what I think I want to do on a Tuesday. It is what my assignment is. He assigned this to me long before I knew it. My responsibility is to say yes. So, what does it require when we're going to move past these moments, right? We have to have the responsibility to evaluate if we see patterns or cycles or things in our life that could possibly halt us or delay us or slow us down. Now, I do believe that there are divine delays. God protects us from things sometimes that we think we want, sometimes things that we think we should be doing at the time. And he says, no, no, no. That person doesn't even have good intentions towards you. So I'm going to let that fall off for you. We don't always understand it. And sometimes it's painful, but we must listen. But what does it require? It requires a teachable spirit, right? And releasing cemented ideas. Think about this for a moment. You were raised in a household. You learn from your parents, your siblings, your aunts, your uncles, and that thing is right for you in your mind. But then when we become believers and God shows us his way, it might contradict some of the things that you learned. That's okay because we want God's right way, not just my culture right way or what my friend said or what my business partner said. Is this okay in the eyesight of God? Like for what he has for me. Because it could be okay for you, but it might not be what's right for me. So it requires us to evaluate. It requires us to be open to what God has called us to do and to unlearn cemented ideas. All right. So the truth is that we can learn something wrong and we can learn wrong. I know that sounds alike, but I didn't say the same thing. We can learn something wrong and then we can learn wrong. I can learn, how to put together a drill wrong. It may not work well. I could put together something and put the part in the wrong place. That's learning to do something wrong. It doesn't give you the optimal function. It doesn't give you optimal use of whatever you're using. So I could learn wrong. I could even learn myself wrong. And so then I might not get the optimal use of my gifts and abilities. As a singer, you could learn to use your voice wrong, right? You got to unlearn that. You got to get rid of cemented ideas. You have to learn your breath control and where to place your notes and all of those things. But then you could learn wrong, something that literally opposes God's will for your life. I could learn to do something wrong, or I could learn wrong. Both of those things can keep me in surviving instead of thriving. I'm making it, I'm getting by, but am I living at my fullest potential? Am I maximizing my potential, my gifts, my skills, my abilities? Am I doing my best with what God has given to me? So we got to evaluate. We have to have a teachable spirit. We have to look at what is right in our life, right? Did I learn something wrong? Do I need to let go of cemented ideas? Or was I just not experienced in that area? Not experienced in that area is I learned to do something wrong. And of course, that can be subjective, right? I say this because wrong can be objective. Because as a human, I could feel that what I'm doing is right. It doesn't mean that it's right in the eyesight of God. It doesn't mean that it's right for my purpose. It doesn't mean that it's right for my timing. Let's use this naturally. I may want a particular, let's say, position on a job. God knows if that's the right position for me at the time because he knows all of the things that I can't see not being in that position. It's not wrong for me to desire it. It could be wrong for the timing in my life, right? It could be wrong for me to desire it if it's not God's will for my life. But if it is his will for my life and just not the proper timing, it's not necessarily wrong for me to desire it. It's not the time for me to implement it. I hope I am making sense to you by trying to draw this scenario to help you make this make sense because that's really my goal. So the wrong that I'm talking about, though, is like sin in our life, right? That's a non-negotiable wrong. Like something that totally opposes your purpose, something that totally opposes God's will for your life. That's what I have to get rid of, and I cannot make that negotiable. I can't set things based on my human standard alone. I have to seek what it is that God wants. So here's the truth. We all must take inventory of what we learned that might not line up with God's will and put it in a place that we can get rid of it, put it before Him. Because we have to not create a life and then ask God to sit in it. We have to create the life that God intended for us. Let me say it again. I can't come along in my human standards, my human wisdom, and create this life and say, hey, God, come and have a seat right here. What I have to do is realize that He created me with a purpose for an assignment for a time such as this. He knew that we were going to be living in 2026. Nothing surprises Him about who our president is or who our congressmen are or where we're living or what city we're assigned to. None of that surprises Him. It doesn't surprise Him that we're going to be raising children in this time and it looks totally different than when we were growing up. None of that surprises Him. But it could overwhelm us if we don't ask Him how to navigate these times, these seasons. It could overwhelm us. It could overwhelm us, right? So I have to learn what God's will is for my life and unlearn what He doesn't want me to do and submit my desires unto Him. Ultimately, here's what I want you to remember. Covenant over culture. I may learn a culture, I may learn a thing, but what does my covenant with Him says? God gives me instructions, wisdom, and insight through His covenant. Culture may teach me patterns, cycles, and behaviors that have just went along in my family or my community, and it's normal, but it doesn't mean that it's godly. Covenant over culture. Covenant over culture. Culture says I'm going to do it the way people, location, and influence says, and the motive is often overlooked. Covenant says godly wisdom, godly instruction, godly insight, and godly agenda. In other words, covenant over culture says, I'm not going to do to them what they did to me. I'm not matching energy. That's culture. That is not covenant. Covenant says, love those that might have just made you mad. Pray for those that despitefully use you. Even if you don't like who's there, honor the position. That's covenant. Culture says, I'm going to match your energy. You did it to me, I'm going to do it to you. But this is what I mean about learning patterns based on our people, places, things, location that we could repeat if we do not evaluate. Y'all hear me? This is midday fuel because right now some may be going through a challenge. You may be going through a challenge at your home with your coworker and you want to match energy. And God is saying, do not render evil for evil. Do not render insult for insult. Can I tell y'all something? This is the truth. I was mad at one point when I found that scripture in the Bible. I probably was about 23, 24 years old. I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that because they was getting on my nerves. And I felt like I could say, no, you can't just say what you want to say. Not when you want to operate in covenant. If you want to just lean into culture, if you just want to survive a moment, yeah, keep that same energy. But if you want to thrive, you've got to lean more into the godly covenant, the reason why God called you to be here, the reason why He allowed your mother and your father to get together. You got to lean into that. You got to lean into that. All right. So, we got to ask God how to build the life that He's granted unto us. And it causes us to lean out to our own understanding. But in all our ways, acknowledge Him and He will direct our paths. So that's what I got for y'all this afternoon. Listen, I hope that you have been encouraged. I want to open up really quickly. If you have any questions or comments,